Daniel Andrews is lying to the people of Victoria and the media is helping him get away with it. No giant surprise. All last week, I've got a plan. I'll tell you about the plan. I'll release the plan. The other plan's not a real plan. This is the real plan. Here's the deal. These are the key things you need to know about what has been announced. In reality, the curfew will stay in Victoria not for 2 more weeks, but until the end of next month, until October 26. Regional Victoria is still going to be punished until mid-October at the earliest. Bars and cafes maintain being absolutely thumped by this Premier. They will be limited to just 10 people, even if we get to November. And when it comes to the reopening, I'm about to tell you a whole bunch of dates, but it's not really about the dates. It's about the cases. And the numbers are numbers that you don't just have to hit once, you have to hit for 14 days or for 28 days. Here's the Premier talking about his plan that the media said was so damn amazing. Reality, nothing really changes until maybe October 26. Roll the tape.
I apologise for the circumstances we find ourselves in. I apologise for the reality that we find ourselves in. But we can't change that. We can't simply wish that away. This job, the honour that I have to lead our state, is about making tough calls, but it's also being accountable. And I'm 100% accountable for where we find ourselves, but equally I'm accountable for getting us to the other side of this.
Now, we should have been able to say see you next Tuesday to this virus months ago. But because of the behaviour and the decisions of Andrews and his government, there was a second wave. Hotel quarantine has worked where there are thousands of people that have come in from overseas. Currently in Sydney, there are 4,500 people. The system didn't work not because the people of Victoria did the wrong thing, but because Daniel Andrews did the wrong thing. The Liberals were right last week to stand in the way of this bloke getting unfettered power for another 6 months. And because of what I'm about to explain to you, this is why he wasn't willing to go month to month. Because we are talking about the end of October, most likely November, before anything starts to resemble the Melbourne that so many people live in and so many of us love. Here's the Liberals' response.
Victoria's contact tracing system is frankly third world. It just simply isn't fit for purpose. It's why we have been in this prolonged second wave for months and months now. Now, we shouldn't have been in the second wave, but the government bungled hotel quarantine. We know that's happened. The trouble is we're still in the second wave because we've got completely inadequate contact tracing.
Now, there is, of course, this very strange group that no public servant has any idea how it actually works. It's called business. If you can't open, you can't make money. If you can't make money, you can't employ people. If you can't make money, you can't do crazy things like pay off your own bills, let alone take care of your workers' bills. Here's the business reaction to this thing getting punted to at least the end of October.
I'm totally gutted. There's no roadmap, no leadership. I've had phone calls from staff today, all worried about where they're going, and with the numbers that he's saying to get down to 5, it's not going to work. I don't think he's listened to anyone in industry.
So here's the reality. September 13 is the end of the 6-week lockdown period, which, remember, was a couple of weeks after everyone had already been locked in since the start of July. So a couple of little cookies have been handed out, but there's no real change. The curfew's still going to be there, but it'll start 1 hour later. Basically, you'll have to stay at home for all the same reasons as you've had to stay at home for the past 6 weeks. Exercise, however, is going to move to 2 hours a day. Wow, how amazing. About 24% of Victorians live by themselves. They will be able to nominate one person, and only one person in the entire state of Victoria, who will be allowed to come around to their house to try to keep them sane. For parents, you're about to get, among other things, a reopening of playgrounds. Now, if cases stay low by September 13, then regional Victoria gets to move to the next step, but the next step is not a huge step, and the next step is not particularly easy to achieve. Because on September 28, or more importantly, an average of between 30 to 50 cases every day for 14 days, you still have a curfew. You still can't have people over to your house. If you meet people, it can only be 5 people in total for 2 different households. So you, the kids, plus 1 of the grandparents. As for exercise, you might be able to go to the pool, you might be able to have a personal trainer, but that again stays as it has been. The social bubble will be there. And again, no real changes to business. Construction will be able to go back to the site, but not fully. Manufacturing, wholesaling and warehouses, again, but not fully. Now, if regional Victoria is able to get to an average of below 30 cases for the next 2 weeks, they will move to the next step. But again, it's not that impressive. So surprise, surprise, September 28, it'll go on for another month. Because on September 28, or should I say, sorry, then we move to October 26, so that's the next mark after this. 5 new cases or mystery cases for 2 weeks. And that's the only time the curfew disappears. You'll be able to leave your house. You'll be able to have gatherings, not at your place, but 10 people outside. You'll be able to have the social bubble, but that's it. In terms of the businesses, cafes, bars, restaurants, they can't open until October 26, or when there are 5 new cases every single day for 2 weeks. And even then, they're only allowed to have 10 people inside. You can have some buildings outside, some dining outside, but that would require your local council to allow you to do it. Melbourne City Council currently doesn't allow many bars, many restaurants, many cafes to have seats outside. You'll be allowed to have a funeral, you'll be allowed to have a wedding, but again, I repeat, we're not talking about 2 weeks' time, we're talking about the end of October. And then if we get to a scenario where there's no new cases for 2 weeks, we are now talking about November. That's when you can have 50 people outside but not over to your house. You can have 20 people, rather, at home. Cafes and restaurants will still have, despite the fact there are no new cases for 2 weeks in November, the rules will still be a maximum of 50 people inside a bar, a restaurant or a cafe. Hair and beauty returns, weddings, funerals and faith will move to a grand total of 10 people, and they're only allowed to do it outside. So the best case scenario after November 23 is if there are no new cases for 28 days. And there has never been a time in this pandemic when there have been no new cases in Victoria for 28 days. An entire month after November, we are now talking about the week of Christmas is when restrictions will be lifted. Now let's be very clear. Anyone who thought that they were getting out of home detention on September the 13th, well, they've been told by the media that they'll just have to wait another couple of weeks. It's not true. You'll have to wait another 6 weeks. He has effectively restarted the lockdown. Another 6 weeks. Shame on the Animal Justice Party, shame on Fiona Patten, shame on the Greens, because they gave him the blank cheque and he's cashed it before the first lockdown had even ended. So how does the situation in Melbourne compare to the rest of the world? Well, with this now going to the end of October, before the restrictions really start to lift, let's compare. In Italy, 35,000 people died, but they only had a lockdown for 58 days. Now, I don't believe China's numbers, but they say 4,000 people died. Their lockdown ended in 77 days. Even in the UK, where 41,000 people died, their lockdown only went for 104 days. To the end of October, it'll be 112 days of lockdown for 661 deaths. This doesn't make any sense. Because if you have a look in France, where their health minister was announcing today the worst day for cases so far, 8,975 in one day. He says, no lockdown, because a lockdown is just a lid on an overflowing cooking pot. France, no lockdown, 8,000 cases today. Victoria, you have to wait till October for the chance to maybe start to get the chance to go outside. Yet the media, they sucked it up, they repeated it. They have set a false expectation for the people of Victoria. You are not leaving your house before the end of October. You can't go back to work until October, until the average is 30 to 50 cases a day for 2 weeks. For the past couple of weeks, we've gone from the low hundreds, down, back up again, down, back up again. There's no way that's going to be achieved any time before then. Now, the Premier has set in some political goals here, which is if the cases actually come good, then he's going to be able to say, we can take a step forward 1 week earlier. And everyone will clap. He has extended the lockdown for 6 more weeks. He's reset the clock. Just like a month ago, he reset the clock. After the couple of weeks, so since July to the end of October, Victoria has been where they currently are. Yes, there'll be some changes, fingers crossed, for regional Victoria. We'll talk about that in a moment or two's time. But this bloke sold you a pup, and the media have been the salespeople to make it happen. I haven't fallen for it because I actually read the document. How many of those people actually read the document? But it does give us one good thing. By now setting number of cases over number of days to equal the next step, you don't have to watch a Daniel Andrews press conference. All you have to do is wait and see what the cases are, measure it up against that, and that's it. So you don't have to sit and put through that garbage that we have all been going through day after day after day after day. And perhaps for his mental health and the sanity of the state, both he and the Chief Medical Officer, you can take a week off. Have your rest. Because you've set a roadmap that sends the state into a cul-de-sac where it will just keep doing lap after lap after lap after lap until the end of October, not September. Now, just as I was absolutely definite that protesting by Black Lives Matter was the wrong thing to do in the first wave, it was the wrong thing to do in the second wave, the anti-maskers, the Freedom Day people did the wrong thing yesterday by turning up to protest. And they got violent. Now, some will say police pushed them too far. Sorry, no excuses. That's the sort of stuff that crazy lefties say. We were incited by the police. You shouldn't have turned up, regardless of what your feelings were whatsoever there. But as I showed you last week, and I would suggest you go and find this file to share around at skynews.com.au, when it comes to the planners of this event, they got arrested. The BLM people got to hold press conferences. Where I've read these documents, and if you're in business, you are in massive trouble right now. You already are for the first lockdown, but essentially the whole thing has now been reset. We go for another 6 weeks. The end of October is when we start to have a change. And even then, the change is minuscule. Paul Dimattina is a former AFL player and bar owner who has checked in so often with a small businessman who is able to articulate the rage. Paul, have I got it right that this is not a 2-week extension? This is the end of October, and even then, your light at the end of the tunnel is you're allowed to have 10 people inside until the end of November?
Yeah, we're in disbelief here, Paul, absolutely. Just before I say anything further tonight, just want to thank everyone out there this week for the thousands of emails I've had. The support has been absolutely overwhelming. Happy Father's Day to my father, who I haven't been able to see today. Love you, Dad. I love all my family. Listen, guys, as I said, can we all keep supporting our local cafes, our local restaurants, our local businesses? We are doing it tough. We need everyone to rally around us and help out. To all the people who signed up to Change Victoria, a big thank you. And to everyone who's gone viral with It is time, thank you. It's, as I said, the support has been absolutely overwhelming, and just can't believe that, as I said, the support that we've achieved, a lot of us, and just keep supporting us where you can. But on to other things, it's sort of gobsmacking. We've sacrificed for 6 months. We have sacrificed, and, we're waiting for Dan's plan today. And what do we get? This is not a plan to rebuild. This is not a plan to open. This is a plan to destroy and divide. There's not a city globally of our size that has had 0 transmissions for 14 days straight. What sort of plan's that? As I said, there's sadness, there's anger, and there's just, we're just wanting the hope. Our staff, all the hospitality workers want to get back and work. No one wants to sit on the couch and earn money. We need people back in the workplace. We appreciate there's a COVID plan and a modelling, absolutely. But, where's this current and the complementary economic or job loss modelling? It just can't all be one-way traffic. There's mental health, there's health, and then there's economic health as well. All three are vital for community health. At the moment, it's out the window.
What about October 26 or 5 new cases and 5 mystery cases for 2 weeks running? That's the best case scenario before you are able to open, but you can only have 10 people inside. And I don't know what it's like for you. Obviously, you've got a couple of tables outside, but for an awful lot of businesses, their local council doesn't let you sit outside.
Correct. It's a death knell for a lot, absolutely no doubt. And I think people forget we live in Melbourne. There's 4 seasons in one day. You can't book a table outside. I mean, today, oh God, the day ended beautifully. The Bulldogs had a win, and being on with you, Paul's always a pleasure. And you give me a bloody good laugh. But in outdoor dining, Melbourne, as I said, the 4 seasons in one day. Some of it's just not practical, and a lot of what you say, it's common sense, and we're just not seeing it with our government at the moment, and it's leaving a lot of us gobsmacked. I mean, hospitality, the regulations we have to go through. There's the Food Act, liquor licensing, everything else. We're the most regulated industry there is. We are safe. We need to reopen safely. People rely on us. The amount of guys out there, girls, everyone who just wants to go to the pub and have a beer with their mates. You can't do that. And honestly, in Melbourne, the way it's looking now, it won't be till March or April. And we aren't getting not achievable what has been set today.
But also, I mean, you mentioned before about the size of your city compared to others, right? Literally, the lockdown in London is going to go for a shorter amount of time than Melbourne, and they had 35,000 deaths.
As I said, it's gobsmacking. Yes, we value people's lives here. Of course we do. And I'm just worried about the mental health of people too. And the livelihoods are being destroyed by, especially us in small business. You know, we want our staff there. They love us. We need them. They need us. And it's just been absolutely shattered again today.
Well, it's this thing too, where we know what JobKeeper is, but it's time for the state government to start pumping up some money here. It's time for them to help pay the basics to get you to when they will let you do what you pointed out last week beautifully is going on in the supermarkets every day.
It's just... there's a genuine misconception here in Melbourne amongst a lot of people that JobKeeper is being supplied by the state government. It's a federal thing, and people genuinely don't understand that. And when that ends, that is when it's catastrophic. The fallout is going to be horrific. We can't live on welfare forever. And, I mean, some of our businesses now need welfare, but you can't live on it forever. Just not a business model for, a great city like ours to survive on. And we were a great city. We want to be a great city again. Let us be a great city, but we need a great leader to make us a great city.
Never forget the most livable city in the world. How many times do they tell you that now? The most unlivable one in Australia. All the best to you, Paul. Stay strong. We're going to keep checking in, mate. Get in touch with us anytime you want to jump on the telly, okay?
Good on you, Paul. Take care, and always a pleasure.
Good man, isn't he? Paul Dimattina, we love him. We'll check back in with him. Anita Donlon is the campaign manager with Beef It Up Australia. She's the lady who's keeping an eye on regional Victoria for us. Now, okay, there's this sort of the spin today was that if regional Victoria keeps doing well, then they'll be able to come out of it sooner. But the tests that you have to get through are nigh on impossible, and even then, places like Geelong will probably not be able to play this game.
Paul, you are absolutely right, and I just have to tell you, today, Mr. Andrews lost the respect of so many people. He had a little bit left. Today, it's gone. I also want to say to you, Paul, we have not had a reply from Mr. Andrews' letter that we sent him via the Prime Minister. So he received that on the 25th of August and still no word. I mean, that in itself says something.
Oh, this is it. I mean, but he's out there today pretending that there's this second stage for regional Victoria. Again, I'd imagine this went down like a lead balloon, pretending that you're going to be able to skip out of this in a matter of weeks. You're going to have to get to I'll double check the exact numbers here, but you're going to have to get to 5 cases or less to be able to open a pub, a restaurant.
Absolutely, and that is going to kill even more businesses, even more economies. Paul, I have been saying since day one, we need a three-tier approach. Rural Victoria must be treated differently. I want to know why our local government areas have been quiet. I put that question to some of our members and supporters last week, and what we've come up with, and I hope you don't mind me saying, is any of your viewers that live in rural Victoria or along the Victorian, South Australian, New South Wales border, please message us at Beef It Up Australia on Facebook, because we've got something cooking. And I'll keep you informed, obviously, but we need to do this. We need to be able to get things happening. The local government areas are being too damn quiet. On the other side of it, we have heard from harvesters who rely on workers from over the border. They can't get them. Now, we heard that there was an agricultural code. Where is it? It's not coming through. Today we heard Father's Day. Happy Father's Day to all the fathers, by the way. When I finished our family celebrations, even though it was very small because we are following the rules, I was bombarded, and I've still got messages in there from people going, Anita, what's going on? What is going on? Mr. Andrews, I have a message for you. You are too city-centric. We have rural communities out there who are following the code. They are making sure they've got sanitising stations. They are making sure that they have a register. Rural communities, they know everybody. They know each other. Let them open. I went out to some small communities last week, Paul, and my stories that I brought back were absolutely depressing. The mental health is depressing. We're hearing up to 90% downturn. I know of one shop, one cafe, the lady had to close on Thursday. She said, I can't keep going. I was also told of, unfortunately, I don't like talking about it, but I was told of some suicides in rural Victoria. Yep. Dan, you've got to stop this. There's a lot of people out there scratching their head going, what the hell are you doing, buddy? I don't know. I'm not a tinfoil hatter. But I believe there is COVID, but there's got to be a better way of doing this. And Dan, answer my letter. Let's get cracking with 3 tiers. And please, everybody, if you live in a rural local government area, please message us at Beef It Up Australia on Facebook, because we've had a gutful.
Good on you, Anita. We'll make sure it's up on our Facebook page too. Just go searching for Paul Murray Live. David Limbrick is the Victorian Liberal Democrats MP. He's the man who, well, wasn't, called him out that this is exactly what was going to happen. That as soon as the blank cheque was signed, he cashed it. He cashed it straight away. David, essentially, the lockdown of Melbourne continues for another 6 weeks. This rubbish about, in 2 weeks we'll give you an extra hour's exercise, it's rubbish. The curfew is still in place until October 26.
Well, we get to go to bed, get the curfew at 9 p.m. now. I mean, what's really happened? I mean, it's exactly what we thought was going to happen. The government is totally incapable of coming up with solutions that are compatible with a free society. They just treat Victorians like their children. And, we've seen all along with this model, and at least we've got a plan now, but we can see it's totally clear how one-dimensional their view on all this is. Like, they're just looking at, what's the number of transmissions and what's the number of cases, but they're ignoring the costs here. I mean, what else do they feed into these models? Do they feed into the models, the number of small businesses that are going bankrupt? Do they feed in hospitality workers? Do they feed in the broken school children? I mean, do they feed in the mental health and self-harm effects? I mean, all of these things that don't seem to be taken into account into these models. There's limits on what people can handle here, and they're just going too far. Like, it's just gone on for too long.
Look, he's an expert salesman, and all of the serious tones and all the rest of it here. We all know what we're dealing with here. But he set an expectation. Just like he did with the 12 months thing. It was an ambered claim, so he could get argued back to 6 months. And unsurprisingly, he got those 3 idiots to sign them in. I'd love to hear what they have to say tomorrow, but I bet it'll be nothing. But it's this scenario where, I've never quite understood how the majority of people cheer on being locked in their own homes. But surely a breaking point is when you're told you're going to have to stay for another 6 weeks after you'd already been there for a month. Another 6 weeks after you'd already been there for a month beforehand.
I mean, I don't buy that the majority of people support it. I mean, I've seen that poll as well, but, the polls said that, Trump was going to lose and that the Labor Party was going to win the last federal election as well. So, I don't believe any of that. But, I mean, this bubble idea, this is like the one sort of innovation that they've come out with. But have a think about the reality of this bubble idea. You nominate another household. So you've got people that have been desperately lonely for such a long period of time. you know, they want their kids to see their friends and stuff. Now they have to choose a friend. I mean, it's like you're going back to primary school again and choose your best friend. Imagine the situation. You've been lonely for months, can't see your friends, and now you have to choose one of them that you're allowed to see. So imagine that for a start. And then if someone asks you and you've already nominated another household, you have to refuse friends that you see. Imagine the horrible situation that's in. It's like they haven't thought this through at all. It's just, I just can't see how this won't end in disaster, you know.
Are you, I mean, you live it all the time. You see it all the time. Are you surprised at all at how easily the media fell for the spin of this rather than the reality of this? Like literally, the headlines tonight weren't even, "You're staying in your house till October."
Yeah, I mean, I can't believe that people didn't think through this bubble idea. I mean, a lot of the media reports were like, "Oh, wow, you can, you know, nominate a household and you can visit someone now." I'm like,
it's crap.
Who wants to choose their best friend that they can visit? I mean, this is just outrageous. And you don't know where to start with all this. And we knew exactly what was going to happen when he got the blank check. And this plan that we've seen that's come out today is hardly any different from the one that was leaked. So they had it a week ago, surely. And, you know, they just didn't want people to know what it was before they were going to vote on it. I think that's all it came down to.
Yeah, absolutely correct. Absolutely correct. He plays everyone off a break and they all seem to fall in line. You don't. That's why we like you. Thank you, David.